Hello everyone. Today I'm going to take you into the world of a rare mammal, the Columbian fisher in British Columbia. In this video, we'll explore its niche in the ecosystem, current population status and historical trends, what is driving its decline, consequences for the ecosystem, what is currently being done and what more needs to be done, what you can do to help. All right, so the one. Niche in the ecosystem. The fisher is a medium-sized mustelid, part of the weasel family, with a slender body, relatively short legs, and a bushy tail. It is a forest predator, active year-round, with a diet that includes small mammals, for example squirrels, snowshoe hares, voles, birds, porcupines, and carrion. Fishers are also agile climbers, and they use tree cavities, logs, and rock crevices for denning and resting. Their home ranges can be large. Female territories may range about 30-50 square kilometers, whereas males may cover 100-200 square kilometers, or even more, in search of mates and prey. Because fishers are mid-level predators, they help regulate prey populations and contribute to forest food web dynamics, for example, controlling rodents. Trophic cascade. Hypothesis. If fisher numbers decline too far, prey species, rodents, squirrels, etc., might increase unchecked, which could alter seed predation, tree regeneration, competitive dynamics, and possibly attract more mesopredators. Over time, imbalances in prey vegetation could cascade. 1. Current population and trends. In British Columbia, there are two distinct fisher populations, the boreal population and the Columbian population. They are separated by high mountain ranges, snowpack zones, for example, the Rocky Mountain Divide, that limit movement between them. The Columbian population occupies more southerly, lower to mid-elevation forested zones, interior BC, in ecological zones like sub-boreal spruce, montane spruce, interior Douglas fir, etc. Estimates for the Columbian fisher's mature adult population currently range between 299 to 517 individuals, for those 2 years old. Some earlier estimates for total fishers in BC, all populations, suggested 1,113 to 2,759 individuals, late winter, using habitat models. In more local areas, the Columbian population is considered small, isolated, and vulnerable to stochastic effects, decline, and genetic issues. Because monitoring is limited, long-term trends are uncertain, though it is believed the population has been declining or at least not increasing, particularly under current levels of trapping and habitat loss. 1. What is causing the decline? Limiting factors and threats. Fishers strongly depend on late successional, old-growth forest structure, logs, snags, cavities, understory complexity. When forests are harvested or cleared, many structural features, large trees, logs, complex understory, are removed or altered. Disturbance from logging also opens up access into previously remote areas, increasing mortality risk, for example, from trapping. The spatial arrangement of remaining habitat patches may force fishers to travel more, exposing them to risks, or reduce connectivity between populations. Insect outbreaks, for example mountain pine beetle, and disease may also degrade forest habitat in parts of BC, compounding habitat issues. Trapping, harvest mortality. Fishers are legally trapped in BC in certain regions, Thompson, Caribou, Omineka, Peace, Skeena, during designated seasons. Mortality from trapping is likely additive to natural mortality in adults, meaning it contributes directly to decline rather than replacing other deaths. Recent modeling suggests that under current mortality rates, any additional harvest mortality is not sustainable for the Columbian fisher population. Genetic isolation, low gene flow, and small population effects. Because the Columbian population is isolated from other fisher populations, low migration across mountain barriers, gene flow is minimal. A recent genetic study estimated approximately 2 to 5 migrants per generation between main populations, which is far below the approximately 90 migrants/generation required to maintain genetic homogeneity. U.S. Forest Service low effective population size means inbreeding, genetic drift, and loss of genetic diversity become serious risks. Small, isolated populations are also more vulnerable to stochastic events, fires, disease, climate extremes, other potential threats. Increased human access, roads, logging roads, may increase mortality, vehicle collisions, human-wildlife conflict. Changes in climate, snow patterns, temperature may affect habitat suitability, prey availability, or movement, although direct studies on fishers are limited. Edge effects or exposure to pollutants, toxins, or rodenticide contamination, more studied in U.S. populations, might pose risks in fragmented landscapes. 1. What happens if the decline continues? Societal, ecosystem impacts. Local extirpation risk. The Columbian fisher population could collapse or be extirpated in certain subregions if threats persist unmitigated. Trophic imbalances. As discussed earlier, removal of this predator may allow prey species to proliferate unchecked, which may affect vegetation, competition among small mammals, seed dispersal, predation, and forest regeneration dynamics. Loss of biodiversity. The fisher has ecological value as part of BC's mammalian biodiversity. Losing it would reduce ecosystem resilience. Indicator species. Because fishers rely on high forest complexity, their decline signals broader forest ecosystem degradation and fragmentation. Cultural, educational, intrinsic value. People value the presence of native wildlife. The decline of such a rare species can affect public perception, conservation momentum, and local pride. 1. What are we doing now and what more needs to be done? Current actions. Fisheries, wildlife authorities regulate trapping seasons, gear, and quotas in certain regions. Studies and monitoring, radiotelemetry, genetics, have been conducted to better understand fisher use, habitat, subpopulations, gene flow, and population structure. Some forest management plans are beginning to incorporate wildlife habitat retention, such as leaving snags, logs, buffer zones, and structural retention in harvest blocks to support fisher habitat features. Nutritional and habitat models are used to identify priority habitat areas, core habitat connectivity, for conservation planning. Some proposals suggest treating the Columbian fisher population as a designatable unit, DU, for conservation status. A distinct management unit, because of its genetic uniqueness and isolation. What more needs to be done? Strong legal protection. BC lacks a unified Endangered Species Act. Species listed on red-blue lists often lack enforceable legal habitat protection. The narwhal habitat protection and restoration, more old-growth forest retention, corridor establishment, limiting fragmentation, linking habitat patches, and restoring degraded areas. Reduce trapping mortality, possibly reduce or eliminate trapping in vulnerable areas, enforce stricter gear regulations, and monitor compliance. Augmented connectivity, translocation. Consider managed translocations or assisted migration with genetic planning to increase population resilience and gene flow, though such interventions are complex and risky. Improved monitoring and research. More consistent population surveys, mortality tracking, demographic studies, and modeling to reduce uncertainties in trends. Public awareness and stakeholder engagement. Educate forestry companies, trappers, local communities, and loggers about fisher habitat needs, and involve them in conservation planning. Long-term funding and partnerships. Sustainable funding for conservation and collaboration between government, First Nations, NGOs, and academic institutions. 1. What can you do? Reflection, call to action. Support or volunteer with wildlife conservation groups active in BC, for example, local NGOs, conservation foundations. Raise awareness. Share this information in your community, schools, or social media. Advocate for stronger provincial endangered species legislation. When engaging in forestry, land use, or planning discussions in your region, ask about wildlife habitat retention and connectivity. Respect wildlife corridors. Avoid creating roads or trails that fragment forest, reduce human disturbance in core forest areas. Support funding and policies for long-term monitoring and research of endangered or vulnerable species. In doing so, you become part of the effort to help sustain the Columbian fisher for generations to come. Thanks for watching.